Welcome to Tech Experts, experts in tech. Here we explore what makes companies successful in today's world. My name is Miguel, and today we will be talking about how managers can efficiently work with remote teams in today's hybrid environment. For this topic, we are bringing for you our special guest, Gavin. Gavin is leading the European Consulting Division at Orange Business Services and has more than 20 years in IT and telecom industries. As well, experience managing commercial, sales, and technical teams. Stay with us for learning how managers can efficiently manage virtual teams and how to improve collaboration. Hi Tom, welcome to Tech Experts. How are you?
I'm doing great, Miguel. How about you?
Very good, thank you. Very happy to have you with us today. I believe you are the best person for talking about today's topic.
I've been involved in some research and putting together some publications on this topic, and they've been translated into other languages other than English and distributed in some magazines and online publications. I don't know whether I'm the best person to discuss it with, but I certainly have some opinions and can share them.
I believe it will be very helpful for the audience. Before we start, could you like to give a short introduction on your background and on the topics you are working on?
Sure. So been with Orange for about 12, 13 years. Started out in sales, been in management for the last 7 or 8 years. I've been managing technical teams and now I've been head of consulting Europe for Orange Business Services for 2.5 years. My personal areas of interest and research are around cybersecurity, specifically how economic models can provide insight into new ways of defending systems from complex cyber attacks. So that's my sort of area of research. Live in London and been like everyone else developing new hobbies as a result of the pandemic and new ways of working and new ways of living.
Exactly, yes, this is very important, especially since lockdowns started last year. Many managers are facing the challenge of working for the first time with remote teams. It could be that in the last decades, they were working with teams, working in the office with 10, 20 people, 100 people, all of them together working in the office. But for longer than 1 year, they are facing the challenge of having teams working fully remotely, or even extra challenge, some of them remotely, some of them from the office. And my question is, how can managers take an advantage of the adoption of a hybrid working environment?
Yes, so you hit on something really interesting. So for me as a manager, I don't have any direct reports in my own country. So I'm used to managing remotely, and that's very typical of a lot of job roles within large companies. But before the pandemic, I was traveling a lot, meeting with my team. And since the pandemic, that's been restricted or stopped. So I've had to learn, or I'm learning, how to project my management style whilst constricted from delivering stuff over technology. And I think the biggest challenge I've had is maintaining an informal style whilst using technology and being remote. So I think it's well documented. Everyone is missing the softer conversations, the corridor conversations, the water cooler conversations. It's very hard to replicate in a technology platform because there's a formality about setting up an invite for a meeting. So that's been one of my key challenges. I think for you, it mentioned the opportunities. I think there has been a lot of I've seen a lot of changes in people and the way in which they work, which are positive. I know there's been a lot of negatives about the pandemic. There's been a lot of anxiety, ill health, and concern from people. But one of the overall positives I've noticed is a much stronger focus on well-being and a flexible approach to work, or a hybrid approach to work, has suited certain areas of the population or certain groups more than others. So I think it's been more beneficial for older people, such as myself, but been less who have families and a lot of commitments outside of work. It's not been so good for young people, where work is an integral part of their social life, and they, particularly for those firms that have an apprentice culture. So if we look at professional services firms, consulting, legal, finance firms, there is a requirement for young people to come in and they are work very hard, but they then earn their right to become partners. And the way they learn is through peers and competition with the peers, and from the presence of senior employees, and that's been challenged a lot. So they've been very much at the forefront of trying to get people back in the office. For technology companies such as us, we've been working remotely in some ways, but pre the pandemic. So we are set up. But I think there is a cohort or a percentage of the working population who actually enjoy the hybrid working opportunities, and those for whom it has been a disadvantage. And one of the interesting topics is still, though, that women in the workplace are still demanded to do more housework, even if they are working remotely. So I think that's continued a trend that's obviously not acceptable, but it has reinforced that women often feel under pressure to perform childcare duties and domestic duties as well as working. I think there's research on that matter. So that's a negative. So we're seeing some things have improved. As I said, I think there's a much heavier reliance on well-being. We're seeing companies taking it very seriously now, talking about the well-being of their employees in a more meaningful way, because it's become a duty of care or responsibility they have for their people. And certainly I've seen that there's been a change in the way in which we interact, tone of voice, way we interact. I think there's a softness to it now, or at least there should be. I think people are more appreciative of each other and their human interaction. So hopefully that will be something that will contain. So yeah, a bit of a mixed bag really in terms of advantages and disadvantages from hybrid working. Just to finish off on that, hybrid working, people talk about it being more productive to work from home or in a hybrid way, but the research actually suggests from the Bank of England, who conducted a study, that any productivity gains as a result of working from home or in a hybrid way is probably just because people are working harder. Now, that's not what we want to see as managers. We want to see people having a more effective time when they're working, but not necessarily putting in extra hours because of the well-being implications around health, physical and mental. So yeah, a bit of a mixed bag, to answer your question.
Mm-hmm. Okay, and what are the benefits of working a hybrid for managers? What is the advantage they can get from it? And what are the implications, for example, in security, collaboration? How can we improve it?
Yeah, so from a manager perspective, it opens up areas or markets for people. It means when you're hiring, you're a lot more flexible in terms of where you can hire from. You're less concerned about people being located in a particular city or a particular country. So that creates opportunities for hiring the right people, but in a more flexible way than before. I think it creates an opportunity to, as I said, the challenge for a manager is a lot more about managing people's well-being, managing their focus, rather than necessarily task-based. So it creates some interesting challenges there. So on the human side, but from a technology perspective, it's thrown up lots of issues. So firstly, I think there was a period during the pandemic where people were using these digital tools and it wasn't working very well. I think now everything has bedded down very nicely. The use of tools such as Microsoft Teams or Zoom is very widely used, and everyone is very confident with them, even people who were not necessarily technically literate. The challenge, though, with those platforms is when people go back in the office. So the other side of hybrid working is obviously working in the office, and I'm seeing a lot of challenges with our customers about integrating Teams into the office environment. The performance of the Wi-Fi, the way in which it treats the traffic, and actually a lot of people have said it's a very common comment that I hear from customers is that the Wi-Fi is better at home, so why did I come in the office? So if we are going to encourage people at some point to go back to the office, we need to continue that experience. And also it's a real challenge to ensure that the experience at home working with someone in the office is consistent. And I don't think many companies have got that right yet. I think some of those challenges have been postponed as we move into more home working during the winter period here in Europe. So that's postponed things, but I think it's another issue that will be coming up in spring of 2022 as people return to the office. And then from a security perspective, we've got to understand that anything that extends the attack surface or the security parameter is a risk. So if you have everyone in a single building with all devices locked down, then this is the least risky from a cybersecurity perspective. The more you expand the footprint of your digital services, the bigger the risk. So having people working from home on remote devices inherently increases the size of the attack surface and increases the threats. And our sister company, Orange Cyber Defense, have done some research on that and are seeing new types of attacks on home routers, looking at those users that have a particularly high level of access within their company, so work for IT teams or executives, and they're being targeted. So, and I don't think we've really got our act together or our story straight in terms of how that's managed. I'm not seeing that being addressed in a formal way at the moment, but I suspect that will also be something that comes out of this. So yeah, I think we're surviving from a technology perspective, but I think there's implications going forward about how we continue this hybrid working, because I think this is here to stay now, regardless of the state of the pandemic, and also how we secure those elements.
Mm-hmm. Okay, and you had the privilege of managing hybrid teams already for a long time. It's more than 2 years, like the majority of people. What has been working for you so far? What are the lessons learned that you got from your experience managing hybrid teams?
Yeah, so I try and I think you, like I said, try and change your tone a little bit of management, particularly when I had new starters such as yourself who was starting during the pandemic. That was a very challenging situation. You were relatively new to our industry as well as new to our company, so that was you have to be very patient. You have to allow for things to take a bit longer to learn, because people aren't necessarily in the environment they were in before. I always try and allow a bit more time for informality in meetings as well, 5 minutes just at the start, just for a little bit of a catch up to try and replicate that informal interaction that we would have if we were in an office together, because I think it's quite a basic human need to be able to discuss the weather or what people are doing at the weekend. Whereas before, if we had a meeting, it would be straight into the agenda points and try and get that done. So, and also I'm keener that everyone feels like they have a voice. I think it's important in meetings everyone gets to speak up. Sometimes it might take a bit longer. Sometimes you might have to listen to someone who you think, well, this isn't quite as relevant as it could be, but you have to be a bit more patient, because people might not have spoken to anyone for the whole day, and replicating that whole human interaction is really important. So that's one of the lessons. So again, the lesson is about keeping teams focused, keeping them well, and that way the work they are productive and projects are completed. I think there's a lot of there was a lot of companies that launched a lot of programs and projects as a result of the pandemic to feel that they were addressing things. So that prioritization of work is really important during a hybrid environment, because I think it's very easy for people to not be able to prioritize on what's important and what's not. And I see that with our customers quite a lot, that there's a lot going on, but it's a question of helping them to prioritize. And I also think that, as you see, we've got our microphones now. That's something we've invested in. So how do you create a decent working environment? Like I said, I think most people now have got their home set up working quite nicely, but you've got to help people to have that and prioritizing those sort of investments. So, because we spend a lot of time here, so those are the kind of lessons that I've learned. But I have to say, as like a lot of managers in this new world, I'm still learning. I'm still trying to research and come up with the best way of doing it. And as the pandemic continues, these practices will still be relevant.
Yes, and even when the pandemic is gone, I believe it will continue. I don't think in the future working in the office will be the standard as it was in 2019, beginning of 2020. I think companies will think more what is the best way for employees, what is the best mix of working from home, working remotely, and from 2 points, they will be thinking what is going to bring the best productivity of the employees and what is going to be more cost efficient as well in terms of real estate, office, utilities.
Yeah, no, I agree. There was a lot of talk of companies reducing their footprint for offices when the pandemic first hit, and there was a lot of plans drawn up. But I think a lot of companies struggled because they're on long-term leases, so it's not as easy to be as flexible as maybe they hoped. But actually, as the pandemic continues, we'll see some of those plans being implemented now, and I don't think we've seen the full effect of that yet. But I think it will be significant in terms of the reduction of the footprint and also what that use is. So it'll be less about large rows of desks. It'll be more like a sort of Starbucks or something like that, where people go for specific meetings and then leave again, rather than arriving at the start of the day and then going at the end of the day. That sort of model seems to be changing a bit as well. This whole sort of concept of commuting at certain times, which will be good for our city infrastructure, or better for our city infrastructure, because there won't be so much of a strain on it twice a day, which causes other sorts of problems. So I think we'll only now start to see the impact on the real estate investment. I know that the British government, for example, has changed some of the rules around use of office buildings and turning them into accommodation. I have, near me there is a large office block that has now become an accommodation block, and I think that's something we'll see as well, the conversion of those usage of offices, and the societal impact of that and the economic impact of that for all the businesses that support offices is still to be seen. A lot of governments have supported those businesses with financial packages, and they're going to be under pressure to stop doing that soon. So yeah, it's still a lot of things to happen, I think.
Yeah, the next 3-5 years are going to be very interesting.
Yeah, no, I agree. I also think that there will be return to the offices in a sense, though, because I think there'll be a novelty about it. We started to see that certainly in the UK just before the latest increase in cases of COVID, where more people were coming in. I think the return to the office, when it happens, is a very organic thing. It's based on personal relationships with people and management, and I've seen companies that have tried to encourage people to go back to the office. They generally just come for the day, they're encouraged to, and then go back again. I think it's going to be a very slow return to the office, and as you say, it will never be the same again. The whole 9 to 5, 5 days a week thing is gone forever now. We're seeing countries and companies experimenting with changes in the working week, changes in the working day. So I think that trend will continue.
Good. Thank you very much. When people from the audience have questions, or they want to maybe check with you any of the topics we were discussing, like, for example, the security in the work environment, how offices can adapt for having the best communication tools for employees, how can they reach you out?
Yeah, so Consulting Europe have capabilities around helping customers to try and manage their communication and collaboration tools, both in a hybrid and office environment, which isn't without its complexity, because they're typically set up very differently from a security and performance basis. And also we have a security practice that can talk about some of the issues we talked about in terms of that attack surface expanding. So if anyone would like to discuss these things with me further, then I suggest they send me an email. I'm the only Tom Gavin at Orange. So my email address is tom.gavin@orange.com. So that's tom.gavin, Gavin, @orange.com.
Good. Then thank you very much. As well, I will paste your email in the description.
Great. Thank you, Miguel.
Good. Then thank you very much, Tom. It was fantastic to have you with us today, and looking forward to further episodes.
Yeah, wonderful. I'd like to come back.
Exactly. Thank you very much. Have a very
Thank
nice
you.
day.
Cheers, Miguel.
Bye.
And you. Bye-bye.